When World War II ended in 1945, the world hoped that justice would follow. The Allies prepared to put Nazi leaders on trial for their crimes, especially those behind the Holocaust. The Nuremberg trials became a symbol of justice, holding some Nazis responsible for mass murder, torture, and war crimes. But not all criminals were captured. Many high-ranking Nazis chose to flee rather than face punishment. With help from secret networks called Ratlines, they vanished, slipping away to countries far from Europe. These escapes were not just lucky breaks. They were carefully planned and supported by governments, church officials, and even Western intelligence agencies. These paths helped war criminals leave Europe and settle in distant places, especially South America. Most escapees began their journey in Germany or Austria, traveling south to Italy, often on foot. This route was nicknamed the monastery route because fugitives stayed in religious sanctuaries along the way. In Rome, helpers gave them new documents. These were often Red Cross passports or Vatican papers, allowing them to pose as displaced persons or refugees. With forged identities, they could easily board ships to South America. Countries like Brazil, Chile, and Argentina became homes for hundreds, possibly thousands, of former Nazis. Argentina became one of the main safe havens for Nazi fugitives. The country's president, Juan Perón, welcomed these newcomers. Perón admired European fascist leaders and believed that bringing in German experts, including former military officers and professionals, would help Argentina's development. He opened the doors to thousands of immigrants from Europe. Among them, war criminals who blended in with the local German-speaking communities. With Argentina's protection, many lived peacefully for decades, building new lives under false names. One of the most controversial supporters of these escapes was Bishop Alois Hudel, an Austrian priest based in Rome. Hudel was known for his sympathy toward fascist ideology. After the war, he used his connections inside the Catholic Church to aid fleeing Nazis. He provided them with new documents and helped them avoid capture. Some were even given Vatican identity papers, making it easier to travel and settle in foreign countries. Hudel and others defended their actions by saying they were helping anti-communists, not criminals. But many of the men they helped were deeply involved in Nazi atrocities. As the Cold War began, the focus of Western powers shifted from punishing Nazis to stopping the spread of communism. Intelligence agencies in countries like the United States, Britain, and Canada saw potential value in some former Nazis, especially those who had knowledge about Soviet tactics or military operations. Instead of bringing them to trial, some agencies recruited them or allowed them to escape. Around 8,000 Nazis are believed to have entered Britain and Canada alone by the late 1940s. These actions created a major ethical dilemma. Should justice be ignored in the name of national security? Several high-profile Nazis used the Ratlines to escape justice. One of the most notorious was Klaus Barbie, known as the Butcher of Lyon. He was responsible for the torture and murder of many people in occupied France. Barbie fled to Bolivia, took the name Klaus Altmann, and lived comfortably as a businessman for many years. Another infamous figure was Adolf Eichmann, one of the masterminds behind the Holocaust. He escaped to Argentina and lived under a fake identity for over a decade. Franz Stangl, a commander of Nazi death camps, was helped directly by Bishop Hudel. He fled to Syria and eventually ended up in Brazil, where he lived for years before being caught. Aribert Hahn, a Nazi doctor known as the Butcher of Mauthausen for his brutal medical experiments on prisoners. He escaped to Egypt and lived for years under false identity. While some criminals escaped justice, others were hunted down thanks to the tireless work of individuals known as Nazi hunters. One of the most famous was Simon Wiesenthal, a Holocaust survivor who spent his life tracking fugitives. Through careful research and investigation, Wiesenthal helped bring over 1,100 Nazi war criminals to justice, including Eichmann. Beate Klarsfeld, another fearless Nazi hunter. Born in post-war Germany, she dedicated her life to exposing former Nazi criminals. Alongside her husband Serge, she helped track down men like Klaus Barbie, the butcher of Lyon. Thanks to her tireless efforts, many of them were finally brought to trial decades after their crimes. Another survivor and historian, Hermann Langbein, focused on documenting Nazi crimes. He helped keep the memory of the Holocaust alive and was a founding member of the Auschwitz Committee. The role of the Catholic Church, especially the Vatican, has been heavily criticized. While some officials said they were protecting people from communism, others see this as a serious moral failure. Helping war criminals start new lives went against the Church's ethical teachings and damaged its reputation. Likewise, the actions of Western governments and intelligence agencies sparked decades of debate. The story of the Ratlines shows how complex justice can be, especially when global politics are involved. But it also reminds us that justice is possible. The Ratlines are not just a footnote in history, they are a warning about the danger of silence. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to help us grow. Thanks for watching.